Hi, my name is Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And today we have the privilege of being here with my newest friend and avocado lover, as am I, Gerardo Tejeda, who lives here in Roland Heights. We just came from the La Habra Heights Avocado Festival that Gerardo invited me to, where we both together got to interview Julie Frink, who is the queen of avocados. Be sure to check out that video. But today we're going to get a tour of Gerardo's avocado orchard. In this educational lesson, Gerardo and I are going to discuss 5 helpful tips to help you succeed in growing avocados. And we've invested a lot of time, energy, effort, resources, interviewed a lot of experts in the field to help bring this content to you. Specifically, we broke this down into categories, with the predominant ones being we're going to discuss watering and how to water your avocado trees. We're also going to discuss soils, and we're going to discuss whitewashing, and we're going to discuss fertilizing, and then I'm going to save you with that bonus 5th tip at the end. And then we're also going to take a tour of the orchard and all the varieties that he's growing here. Tell us a little bit about your avocado trees. How many varieties do you have here?
Ooh, I can't even count them all. I'm going to say about 10 different kinds. And they're all from different growers, local growers here in Southern California.
So you've got about 10 varieties of avocados here on your property, and I noticed you got a mix of type A and type B varieties within your property as well, right?
That's correct.
So when it comes to planting avocados, do you need type A and type B avocados in order to have fruit?
I was gonna say yes. You gotta have more than one tree per property.
Yeah?
Yes.
What if you only have room for one avocado tree? Can you still have fruit?
Yes, but your production is gonna be a lot less. If you're gonna do one tree, I'm gonna say Reed. Reed is the best backyard avocado.
Oh, that's a great point. So let's discuss. I mean, everybody knows the Hass avocado, not Haas as most people call it. Again, we just sat with Julie Frink, who's the queen of avocados, and she even knows the Hass family that planted the original Hass avocado tree in 1926, and we even visited that person's house together. We got to visit the home of Rudolf Haas. Oh my God, this is so hard.
Yeah.
Where we visited the home of Rudolf Haas, and we even saw the memorial for where that original Hass avocado tree once stood. So even though the Hass avocado tree is the world's #1 most distributed variety of avocados, again, in the world, it is not necessarily the #1 best tasting variety. And there's other ones that are right up there with the Hass avocado in regards to taste and quality and production. So aside from the Hass avocado tree, what are other varieties? Let's say, as you mentioned, if there's one avocado tree that I can bring to my property, what would you pick?
The Reed.
So the Reed avocado is your #1 choice. If I've got now room for, let's say, 2 or 3, what should I be looking for?
If you have enough room in the backyard, it's gonna be the Haas and the Fuerte.
So now we've got the Haas and the Fuerte, which I have on my property, and I'm looking to expand that collection. And then Reed is like one of the higher ranked varieties to look for. And let's go even further down. What would be the next 2?
The next 2 would be the Lamb Haas and the Surprise.
So Lamb Haas and Surprise. Yes. So those will be it. And we'll get to view some of those varieties as well. What do we have over here to your right? I see it's just covered in avocados. And I know there's a few of your trees over here. They seem to be bearing way more avocados than they could possibly support. Maybe they will. But what is this one over here?
This is a Jim Bacon.
Okay.
It's been here about 4 years, going on its 5th year. And all you have to do really is cover it with mulch. The right watering and cover it with mulch.
Well, you mentioned watering, so let's get into watering now. So you've mentioned over here with your Jim Bacon variety, which I'm gonna zoom in so the viewers can see just how amazing this tree looks. You said it performed best once you added a good, what, I'm guessing 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch?
6 inches of mulch.
6 inches of mulch, and then just good watering practice.
And good watering.
So tell us about watering.
Watering in the ground, I would do Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
So with your Monday, Wednesday, Friday watering practice, how much water are you offering the trees?
I'm watering about 8 minutes, 10 minutes max.
So 8 to 10 minutes, 3 times a week.
3 times a week, and then you give the weekends a break.
Okay. And I noticed that on your property you also have these 3-inch pipes surrounding some of your trees. It's not necessarily on all of them. Can you explain a little bit about the 3-inch pipes?
Okay, the 3-inch by 36-inch pipe is really for ventilation, not to put water in it. The soil is a filter, so you water from the top to the bottom. If you water from the bottom up, you could hurt the roots by over fertilizing, putting fertilizer in the pipes, and you're gonna burn the roots. The soil filters the water, filters the salt, filters the calcium, and that soil cushions the harshness of your water, for it won't burn those roots.
So you don't stick your hose into that 3-inch pipe and it goes 36 inches deep right into the root ball and just start soaking the entire root ball from the bottom up?
That's only when you initially plant a tree. And when you have them on a hillside, or if the tree came in a 24-inch box.
And initially being like how long?
And maximum 2 years. And then you want to pull that pipe out of the ground.
So you don't keep that there?
No.
So something I learned, which I kind of want to bring in some of my experience as well, is to mimic rain. And with that being said, the goal is, and I've noticed also, and you shared some pictures with me, which I'm going to share also with the viewers, is that you water the entire zone around the tree. When it comes to watering, you're not just watering, you know, one side of it. You don't have a drip irrigation on one side of the tree, but it's all about not just watering the root zone, but watering that soil biology that surrounds the root zone, which is the earthworms, beneficial bacteria, the mycorrhizal fungus that's breaking down those wood chips and that mulch layer you've added, returning those elements to the plant. But if you're watering through a 3-inch pipe going down 2 to 3 feet, you know, into that root zone, you're not mimicking rain, you're not mimicking nature. Correct. As that's not how the tree otherwise ever existed, with water coming from below the ground, and instead it would prefer and grow best with water coming from up above, as does rain, and hence the words mimic rain.
Right.
So when it comes to watering, and we're discussing the importance of watering that entire zone as you do with your trees, what type of system do you use?
I use a micro sprinkler, which shoots about 8 to 10 feet around the whole diameter of the tree.
So so basically sprays that entire root zone. And then how many do you have like surrounding the tree? That one actually can reach, you said?
Yes, I have one, and it reaches about 8 to 10 feet in diameter of the tree.
Oh, that's great. I know with people that are using like drip irrigation, and again, just to reiterate the importance with drip irrigation, if you've got on one side of your plant or tree, it's just watering the root zone in that area. And even if you're soaking it, you're missing out on all of that topsoil, as avocados also have very shallow roots, that if you're only watering one side of the plant, you're missing that whole shallow root system of the other side of the avocado tree. And again, that's just the importance of watering that root zone. The other thing I want to talk about with Gerardo is soil. Tell us a little bit about soil and what do avocado trees want when it comes to soil?
Wow. Well, what I got here is native clayish soil from the same soil that the mother tree grew on. My pH level is at 8.1 with a lab doing it here in Southern California, and my trees are doing fine with just watering and lightly fertilization.
So do avocado trees prefer, with an 8.1 that's on the alkaline side, do avocado trees in general, do they prefer alkaline soil or more acidic below a 7 pH?
Below the 7.
So in order to accomplish that, and I notice you've got a lot of mulch around your plants, adding a good layer of mulch around your plants and every time you water will actually correct the pH of the soil from, you said you're at an 8.
8.1.
And it'll swing it now towards the acidic.
Right, it'll go down to 6.5, 7.
So I don't think I've ever in history mentioned the value of mulch for the purposes of acidifying your soil, but that's another added value that you get here on your alkaline soil of accomplishing the acidity that these trees will naturally accomplish when they shed their leaves as these trees become more mature. But in the interim, while they're young, I see you've added a good layer of wood chips and compost. I noticed around another one of your trees where you've done a nice top dressing around the tree, which I'll do a separate segment and include here in the video. With soil, I've done plantings, I'll admit, in the past where we planted avocado trees doing as some labels do. And we'll recommend 50% compost with 50% native soil, mix that all together, and then use that for your planting mix. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't do that. What I do is basically put the tree in the ground, and as fast as those roots could get into the native soil, the better off the tree is.
So everybody thinks adding compost is just going to help feed the plant and it's going to help pull the roots in the right direction, and that's why you want to mix compost in with that native soil.
No, what you really want to do is put the compost on top of the tree, to put the mulch on top of the tree, put the fertilizer on top of the tree, not in the hole.
Not in the hole. So, and again, that goes right back to the way nature intended it. Like nature naturally, if you're adding manure, you'd put it near the top, and,
yes.
and kind of, I noticed with Gerardo, he kept it away from a little bit the root ball, as the watering is going to bring those nutrients to the tree. And again, with the mulch and again with compost, we're not putting it in the root ball. Gerardo's one of the few, I'd say less than 5% of the people in the country that understand the importance of not using, or if you're using, to use it sparingly
yes.
in your mix with your native soil or as you're preparing the hole. As other important lessons, we've learned this from interviews with Gary Matsuoka of the Laguna Hills Nursery. He's the owner there. And we've also had an interview with Tom Spellman of the Dave Wilson Nursery, where he also goes into detail about the importance of not putting compost in with your native soil and then planting the tree. One of the important things that I've noticed this in forums on Facebook that you've introduced me to as well, is where after about 3 to 5 years, people are pulling their trees out of the ground because they've sunk. And you can imagine that if you're putting 50% compost with the native soil, that compost is all going to disappear in a matter of weeks or months. And now the tree is going to settle by all of that compost you put in the soil, compared to your native soil, which is made up of sand and clay and rocks and whatever else is in there. Those are minerals that are not going to break down. Those are going to stay there for 100 years. But you put compost in there, the tree's going to collapse, and that's another value and a good practice that I see, and your trees are so happy here on your property. Yeah. So we just talked about a lot of important concepts relating to soil management for your avocado trees. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yes. When you're planting the tree, if you plant too low, it won't grow.
So if you're planting your tree too low, it won't grow. That's an awesome tip, and you guys better remember that. If you plant it too low, it won't grow. And the idea behind that is when you get your container or pot from the nursery, you want to make sure that that soil level in your container is at the same soil level when you plant it in the ground. You're looking at me as there's still more to that as well, because I know sometimes the nurseries add more soil on top of their containers so it looks like it's full of soil, because that's what customers want, but that's not necessarily better for your trees. So what do you do when you bring your trees home?
Well, I actually keep them in the pot for 6 months to a year to establish a good root system, and then is when I put them in the ground.
Oh, that's interesting. Another lesson I use also when bringing it into the ground is I usually dig back some of that soil that is typically added on by either the nursery that's selling it or the grower right before they sold it. They just fill up the pot with soil, and I usually go and remove that top soil and get to where the root, the initial roots flare from the top of the root crown, and I try to plant the tree close to that zone and maybe cover that with about a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch of soil, not compost, just to make sure that those roots are going to remain protected and grow into the soil medium at the right height and not be starting off 3 or 6 inches too deep again, even though it looks like it's at the right level within the container.
I 100% agree with you.
I like 100%. Well, now let's talk about whitewashing. So I've noticed on your property, we've kind of done the tour already. We're going to repeat it so the viewers can see it towards the end, as there's just so many impressive varieties. And here we are now, the middle of May, and there's some fantastic fruit set happening here. And I'm just excited to see how it develops over the course of the rest of this year. So hopefully we'll be coming back to do so. But I noticed all your trees are painted white. Do you want to explain why or what you've done?
Well, when you do paint it white, you're protecting it from the sun, and you also, when you spray it with Charles's Ivy Organic, you're keeping all the earwigs, termites, any insects at night that come and attack the leaves.
You've mentioned in our meeting with Julie earlier, you mentioned something about earwigs. Have you actually had an issue with earwigs?
Yes.
Is it chewing your avocados or your vegetables or other things?
No, they usually eat up the leaves at night.
Well, that's amazing. So ever since Gerardo's been using the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard ready-to-use spray, he's been spraying the leaves, and he noticed that the leaves are now remaining pest-free, and that means the plant can now use those leaves, which are the engines for production and growth and just getting better established and reaching its potential sooner. So with whitewashing, the goal, and as you'll see with all the trees and in our meeting also with Julie, she's like, avocados love sun, but the tree trunks will burn if they're exposed to sun. And avocados are one of the most, in my experience and with all the nurseries I've taught at, they would vouch for the fact that avocado tree bark burns more readily than almost any other variety of fruit trees and just other trees in general. But this phenomenon of sunburn happens to avocados as it does to all trees as well, whether it be citrus or figs or a whole bunch of trees. And I've documented burns happening to tree trunks as well. But I noticed that you've been predominantly using latex paint on some of the original trees that you planted. And I know you've now integrated using the Ivory Organics as an organic way to whitewash your trees. And the reason for not using latex paint on your trees going forward, now that we know each other, is that latex paint is meant for your house. You put paint on your house and 100 years later, the paint's still on your house. But if you put on your trees, within 1 to 3 years, that tree's gonna make a new layer of bark and all that paint's gonna end up now in your soil for a long period of time. Compared to now, you can use the 3-in-1 Plant Guard. As of April, it's now OMRI certified as well. And I'm proud I'll be giving you some of those initial batch of products to be using here in your home garden.
I'll be looking forward to it.
So recently, just in the last month, I visited a nursery that was selling these like 15-gallon avocados, and they were in these plastic containers, and the entire plastic container was covered in white. And obviously I know that they're whitewashing the trees, but I wasn't sure if they started whitewashing them now at the larger height, or you said you've seen it at a younger age than a 15-gallon size tree.
Right. At 1-gallon size trees, they're whitewashing the whole tree, leaves and all, bucket, everything.
So you've seen growers, they whitewash the entire plant structure, leaves and all.
Correct.
And I've noticed even on Gerardo's property, he's got some trees that he completely whitewashed, but apparently a little bit too thick in my opinion. The Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard ready-to-use spray, and even the pint-sized cans make up to 5 gallons, or somewhere between 20 to 25 of the ready-use spray bottles. You will create like a film that is very light and will still allow sun to come through. It's porous, allowing you to still do your foliar and nutritional sprays through the Ivory Organics products. But when you spray basically the organic sunblock on your plants, it won't be that noticeable as you've done on some of your trees. But with the nurseries that you visited, do they apply a coat that thick that the leaves are white, or is it something more in between?
No, they do 50-50 latex paint.
Yeah, so like a 50 latex paint and water.
Right.
So the goal is hopefully to take the trend and start doing things organically, and especially for the organic home garden. And now we're also supplying to orchards across the country that are certified organic. They cannot use paint on their trees as that's contaminating their organic orchards. So that's an important lesson to hopefully take away as it relates to whitewashing and protecting your especially newly installed trees, because their tree trunks are exposed and until they create that natural canopy, shading and naturally protecting the underlying story of the tree. So we just talked about whitewashing. That was our third most important category as it relates to avocado tree care. And now fertilizing. When do you fertilize your trees?
Oh, I love to fertilize in March, June, and September.
So March, June, September, and I always talk about that it's important to feed your trees 3 times a year, especially like using a granular that'll like break down over the months in between those March, June, and September months that you mentioned. I sometimes have a chart showing that the March feeding will be a light feeding as the temperatures are still cool and the plant's growth is still warming up to get to those summer months. By June, that's going to be your dominant feeding, and then September is your last feeding, and make that a small one, meaning whatever the directions are on your fertilizer, do 50% or less off of the recommended amount. And then also consider, in my opinion, my most important feeding month is May. We're right now in the middle of May. I see the fruit are setting, and when it comes to organic fertilizers, they depend on the activity of these soil organisms. So by using a granular that's going to break down over the course of a few months, even though June is the peak light hours, and that's why you said June, there's now 14 hours of light here, and the trees are supporting a ton of fruit. They're growing. They're capitalizing on all of these resources. They need to make sure that they've got all of the macro and micronutrition in the soil, and that's the reason for June being the most important month. But I like starting a month sooner, because when it comes to organic, it needs time to break down. If you're using a synthetic, or some people call it chemical, but a synthetic fertilizer is more readily available because not dependent on the soil biology, but it also potentially harms and even kills your soil biology. And that's just the one reason I'm going to say not to use the synthetic. There's a longer list of why not to. But with the organic fertilizers, the goal is start in May, so that way it has a chance to break down, so it can capitalize on the highest light hours being mid-June and the start of summer. So we just visited Gerardo's garage. We pulled out a few fertilizers. I've never done a side-by-side comparison of the 6 Macros Plus fertilizers as well as what the competitor fertilizers have. And it's the reason that the Ivory Organic 6 Macros Plus came out with its fertilizer that offer the plants all of the macronutrients. And it's really the only fertilizer on the market that has all the macronutrients plants need, plus a lot of the micronutrients, as well as the beneficial bacteria and mycorrhiza. And I'm going to prove it to you right here and right now today. If you come in a little closer, let me just share this product with you over here. The Ivory Organic 6 Macros Plus, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and that's what most fertilizers are focused on, are on these 3 macronutrients. Nitrogen for growth and greening, phosphorus for fruiting and flowering, potassium, disease resistance, and root strength and development. But again, that's only half the story. 6 Macros Plus is got 6 macronutrients, all the macronutrients plants need, which include magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. And then there's the super blend that has a higher NPK. And again, it says over here it makes 20 gallons. You can use a tablespoon of this to a gallon of water, as well as the premium blend over here, which just has a lower NPK of 244 compared to the super blend, which has a higher 13, 12, 13. And now let's take a look at the competitor fertilizers and see if they have that NPK-CA. So this first fertilizer over here, and I'm trying to hide their name so I don't give it away. It's not to bash any company, but just to share with you, go and do your homework and research what's in this product. This one here has nitrogen. We scroll down, it's got phosphate, which is your phosphorus, and it's got potash, which is your potassium, and then it's got calcium. So it's got the NPK, and it's missing the Mg, which is the magnesium, and the S for sulfur, and then it's got calcium. So it's missing 2 of the macronutrients. And then if we take a look at this next product over here, right up in this corner over here, you can see that it's got nitrogen, it's got phosphate, it's got potassium. Again, all the fertilizers are focused on NPK. Then it's got magnesium, and it's got sulfur, and it's got iron, which is a micronutrient, but this one lacks calcium. The next one over here, a liquid fertilizer, has nitrogen, and scroll down, it's got phosphate, which is your phosphorus, and then it's got potash. And that's it. It's focused on NPK, missing magnesium, sulfur, and calcium, which is the other half of the story. And then we've got this product over here, which is focused on magnesium and sulfur. So it's got 2 macronutrients, doesn't have anything else. And the last one over here, but let's run down it. Nitrogen, phosphate for phosphorus, potash for potassium, magnesium, sulfur, and then take a look, there's no calcium. So it's missing the 6 macronutrient, but it's got these micronutrients of boron, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, and zinc. And those micronutrients you can also find right here in the 6 Macros Plus fertilizers as well. Since we're talking about micronutrients, you can see it's got iron and manganese and zinc and copper and boron, and it's all derived from these organic ingredients. If we just take a look at just this first line over here, you can see it's derived from feather meal, alfalfa meal, fishbone meal, cottonseed meal, potassium sulfate, glacial rock dust, neem cake, rock phosphate, oyster shell flour. We're not going to read this entire paragraph, but it's all derived from an organic source to deliver all of those 6 macronutrients as well as those micronutrients and all that beneficial life to your soil biology. So the 5 tips, we talked about watering, we talked about soils, we talked about whitewashing, we talked about fertilizers. What else would you like to talk about?
Wow. There's a whole lot of... Oh, man.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
How about when it comes to, you mentioned about your containers. When you buy your plants from the nursery, you said you generally like to keep them in the containers for a while. Why?
To establish a good root system. A lot of the growers are here just to, you know, get the product out in the streets for you could plant your tree right away, but they need time to be established in the pot before you actually put them in the ground. And the best time for avocados that I have is October and February. Those 2 months are to me, the best time of the year to plant an avocado. Oh, that's great. You actually just reminded me of some other conversation we had as well. But you mentioned for planting, best months are October or February.
And February. So keep that in mind for planting times. Those are the 2 ideal months. For people planting now, let's say in May, even though I encourage you all to go out and plant your trees, you're putting them up against the worst and the hottest months of the year. So in these, especially avocado trees, are very sensitive to heat. And it's ideal that, again, if you plant in February, at least they have a few months to adjust to your grow zone, whereas in the nursery, they're always clustered and huddled in the canopy of other trees, whereas now when you bring them in the home garden, they're standing alone on your property. They have to deal with the brunt of summer all alone for the first time in its existence. So, but that's a great point. So February and October. Something else you also mentioned goes back to the watering tip. Now that we're just going back and forth, when it comes to watering, you have a favorite time for watering your trees too. I remembered that you had.
Best time is 5 o'clock a.m.
So 5 o'clock in the morning
is the best time to water.
So in his experience, and I know he's talked to a lot of professionals as well. I was with you when you were discussing watering. 5 o'clock in the morning gives the plants an opportunity to really absorb and take in that water before the temperatures warm up and dry it out. Watering at night, what's the negative about, you know, 8 o'clock at night waterings, let's say?
You start attracting insects, you could get root rot, whole lot of stuff can happen at night.
You just don't want your plants wet for 12 hours is the point.
Correct.
You want to water them at 5 o'clock in the morning, then the sun comes up and begins, you know, the evaporation and drying process. Then it creates for a healthier soil and a healthier tree. Yes. That's great. So we covered a ton of content. For that tip number 5, I'm going to have you guys write me in the comments down below right now. Let me know what more you'd want to see. We're now going to start the tour of the property, and I'm going to just highlight some of the favorite trees that we've seen here on the property so we can watch them grow from year to year, and I can keep you guys posted, and hopefully our friendship will continue to grow, as does your avocado trees.
All right, Charles. Let's go take a tour.
Let's do it.
This is the Jim Bacon that was planted 4 years old. And it has probably over 150 avocados on there. And it's layered with 6 inches of mulch and with a micro sprinkler system. Okay, down here at the bottom of the tree, you're gonna see the leaves. They stay down here for the life of the tree, and there's 6 inches of mulch. And when you move the mulch out of the way, you're gonna start seeing worms. Here's the worm, and this is what you want. And then with the micro sprinkler system that you water 3 times a week. And here's what the soil looks like before you do any mulch and watering. Like a dry clay soil. Here's the shower well that's 2 years old, over 4 feet, 5 feet in height, with over 100 avocados on them. And also the tree is whitewashed, as you can see down here in the trunk area. And then we'll go to the second tree I have, which is less than 1 year old. And this is a surprise. And it's standing about 10 feet tall, 12 feet. And this is also whitewashed, as you can see. Here's another tree, Nabal. This tree's been in the ground for 2 years. It's only 3.5 feet tall. And this is the reed. This reed was about a foot tall about 2 years ago. Now it's 3 to 4 feet tall. The reed is one of the awesome, best avocados to grow in your backyard. It grows 12 feet by 12, and it's a good screening tree to block your neighbors, according to Julie Frink. And this is the parents of Nabal. And here's another Nabal. And here's the 2-year-old lamb house. It also was about 1.5 feet tall. Now it's 4 feet tall, and it probably has 50 avocados on it. It's going on its 3rd year. And as you can see inside, there's a lot of whitewashing been done. This lamb house fruit is 3 times larger than the house. This is another lamb house. Some trees during the winter time they shed all their leaves. This is a Pinkerton. As you can see, it's been whitewashed. And then over here is a 2-year-old Gwyn. This is also a nice backyard avocado. It's very high productive tree. As you can see, I'm guessing over 100 avocado growing on there. Fuerte avocado right here. As you can see, the tree's been whitewashed, and you see a micro sprinkler right here that I water 3 times a week. And then you also see the 3-inch pipe that goes down 36 inches. This pipe is for ventilation to dry up the clay soil that's in there. After 2 years, you want to remove this. Watering needs to go from the top, filter through the soil, and hit the roots. That's the proper way. You do not water from the bottom up, because if you use too much water, the calcium in the water is going to burn the roots. And if you accidentally drop fertilizer in here, you over fertilize the tree and burn the roots. And also you could tell right here how you want the tree to swing in the wind as fast as you can. You remove that stake and it needs to swing in the wind. Let's take a tour over here. Here we have a Haas, about 3 months old. It was planted in February, before the heat comes. Here's another Haas. And if you use IV Organic, all these leaves that are being eaten by insects at night will not happen with the IV Organic spray. Here's a 2-year-old Haas avocado that's been bought at a big department store, and it's also doing very well here on my property. And here is a bacon that I planted in February, my favorite time of the year. And it's also producing about 5 to 10 fruits. And just to show you, this is how I do my micro sprinkler system. Okay, let's go to my backyard where I have more trees. Here's a surprise that was planted from a 5-gallon bucket about this high when I initially planted it. A year later, it's this tall, and now it's this tall. And it's also producing fruit as of right now. And here, as you can see down here on the floor, I have wood chips and steer manure away from the root ball. It's on the outside drip line.
So I just noticed here on the property, we've got drain pipes that are between the trees, unlike the avocados that you had newly planted. You said, again, the rule is use the drain pipes 3 inches, 30 to 36 inches deep, and it's only a 2-year solution to offer aeration to the root zone, right?
Correct.
I'm hoping I'm learning from you because these are all new ideas to me. But here I notice the drain pipes are now between the trees. Why?
Because whatever runoff happens, it goes into the pipe and down at the drip line, the future drip line of the tree. That's okay to put the water in. You don't want to put the pipe next to the root ball because then you're going to get root rot.
It'll be too much water. So
yes,
with the pipes that we saw again up by those trees, you don't put water into it. But no, here, and I like the fact you mentioned the future drip zone, because these trees look small now, but one day they're going to be big, and this here is now going to be really close to the heart or the central part of the drip zone of the plant. So that at that point you will not be adding water as the trees get more established. But now while they're young, it helps to saturate the soil as if there was a true heavy rain and keep that moisture within the soil. But again, away from the root zone as these trees are young, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. This is like so many educational lessons going on here on your property.
This is the right way. Because these roots will be over here,
yeah,
and you can water and you'll still be okay. But if you have it here, this tree's getting used to that pipe right there, and all the roots are coming because they want air.
Yeah.
And when you pull it out,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You don't want it in there.
I love all these ideas you've got going on.
Yeah, that's okay in between.
And you can see, we'll just walk so you can see like the next one as we walk past the tree. And you can see there's a second drain pipe over here, now strategically placed between this and the next fruit tree, that's surrounding us. And there's this pattern going on throughout the entire garden. So in this educational lesson here with Gerardo, we covered 5 helpful tips to get you off to an excellent start with your avocado tree plantings. Thank you, Gerardo, for the beautiful avocado orchard planting tour. And we're so looking forward to revisiting and watching the development of all of this for the many years to come.
Thank you, Charles, for coming to my house.
Of course. If you've enjoyed this educational video brought to you by Ivory Organics, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and hit that push bell notification to get notification as soon as these videos become released and made available to you. Just another reminder as well, please leave your comments below with what more you'd like me to do with Gerardo and his avocado orchard planting projects. There's still a lot more that he's got on the side and other parts of his garden avocado related. Ask me your questions down below, and I'll do my best to have those answered in series to follow. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.
Have a good day.